They call you the loneliest generation, the most anxious, the most depressed. They say you're addicted to your phones, that you can't handle real life, that you're soft. But here's what they're missing. You're not broken. You're adapting to a world that's fundamentally broken. If you were born between 1997 and 2012, you are Generation Z, and your brain is wired in a way no generation before you has ever experienced. This isn't about excusing behavior. This is about understanding the psychology of the first generation to grow up entirely inside the digital simulation. Let's talk about what's really happening in your head. Here's something every generation before you had that you don't. Forgiveness. When your parents made mistakes as teenagers, those mistakes faded into memory. Bad haircuts, awkward phases, stupid opinions. They got to reinvent themselves, to grow, to leave the past behind. You don't get that option. Your mistakes are screenshots, permanent, searchable, weaponized. Your entire adolescence is documented and stored on servers you'll never control. Psychologists call this context collapse. You're performing for multiple audiences at the same time. Your friends, your family, future employers, strangers on the internet, and there's no privacy. No room to fail safely. And your brain knows this. That's why you overthink every post, every comment, every photo. Because it's not just a moment, it's evidence previous generations could be different versions of themselves in different contexts. You can't. You're always on, always being watched, always being judged. That's not anxiety, that's hypervigilance, and it's exhausting. Let's talk about what's happening to your dopamine system. Every generation has dealt with comparison, but you're the first to compare yourself to an algorithmically curated highlight reel of the entire planet. You're not just comparing yourself to your classmates anymore. You're comparing yourself to influencers, to celebrities, to people whose entire job is to look perfect. And here's the psychological damage. Your brain can't distinguish between real competition and fake competition. When you see someone on Instagram living their best life, your brain registers that as, everyone else is winning, I'm falling behind. But it's a lie. Those people are performing too. They're just better at hiding the struggle. The algorithm feeds you success, wealth, beauty, perfection. And because that's all you see, your brain starts to believe that's normal, that everyone has it figured out except you. Previous generations had the privilege of not knowing what everyone else was doing. You don't. You see it all, and it's crushing you. Social comparison isn't new, but the scale of it, that's destroying your generation's mental health in ways we're only starting to understand. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You grew up being told you could be anything, do anything, change the world. And then you watched the world fall apart. You saw the climate crisis ignored. You saw school shootings normalized. You saw economic collapse, pandemic, political chaos, adults failing at everything. Every institution that was supposed to protect you, education, government, economy, even the planet itself, betrayed you. So when people ask, why is Gen Z so nihilistic? The answer is simple. Because optimism got punished. You learned early that the system is rigged. That hard work doesn't guarantee success. That doing everything right still leaves you in debt, underpaid, and watching the world burn. Psychologically, this creates what's called learned helplessness. When you try and fail repeatedly, your brain stops trying. Because why would it? The outcome is the same. Older generations had hope. They believed the future would be better. You don't have that luxury. You've seen the data. You know what's coming. And people call that doom scrolling. But really, it's pattern recognition. You're not pessimistic. You're realistic. The problem is, realism without hope is paralyzing. And that's where you're stuck. Let's talk about who you're supposed to be. Previous generations had time to figure out their identity, to experiment, to try on different versions of themselves in private. You don't get that. You're building your identity in public, in real time, under constant surveillance. And the internet told you that you need to have it all figured out. Your sexuality, your politics, your career, your brand, all of it. By the time you're 16, so you chose labels, pronouns, identities, not because you're snowflakes, but because you needed language for what you were feeling. You needed categories that older generations didn't give you. And when people mock you for it, what they're really mocking is your attempt to define yourself in a world that refuses to let you just exist. Here's what's psychologically brutal. You're expected to have a fully formed identity while still being told you're too young to understand. You're old enough to be tracked, marketed to, and exploited, but not old enough to be taken seriously. So you retreat online, into communities where people actually see you, where your identity is validated instead of dismissed. That's not weakness, that's survival. You're the most connected generation in history, and the loneliest. You have hundreds of friends online, thousands of followers, constant communication, and yet you feel completely alone. Here's why. Your brain is wired for in-person connection, for eye contact, physical presence, shared experiences, in real space. But you grew up with digital connection, text-based relationships, curated interactions, parasocial bonds with people you'll never meet. And psychologically, it's not enough. Your nervous system knows the difference between a hug and a heart emoji, between sitting with someone in silence and sending them a meme. The pandemic made it worse. You lost critical years of social development. Proms, graduations, first jobs, first relationships, all of it reduced to Zoom calls and Discord servers. You learned to connect through screens, and now real-world interaction feels harder, more awkward, more exhausting. It's not that you don't want connection, it's that you don't know how to build it anymore. And when you try, it feels performative, forced. So you retreat back to the screen, where connection is easier but emptier, and the cycle continues. Here's what people get wrong about Gen Z. They see your anxiety and call you weak. They see your boundaries and call you entitled. They see your activism and call you performative. But here's what they're missing. You're the most emotionally intelligent generation in history. You talk about mental health, therapy, trauma, healing, things every generation before you suffered in silence. You set boundaries. You call out toxic behavior. You refuse to suffer just because that's how it's always been. You're not soft, you're self-aware, and that terrifies people who were taught to bury their pain. You're navigating a world that's more complex, more uncertain, and more surveilled than any generation before you. And you're doing it while being gaslit by the people who created this mess. Yes, you're struggling, but you're also adapting. You're building communities online, creating art, starting movements, demanding change. You're the first generation to say, this system is broken, and we're not going to pretend it's fine. That's not weakness, that's courage. To Gen Z, you're not the problem. You're the canary in the coal mine. Your anxiety isn't a character flaw, it's a rational response to an irrational world. Your loneliness isn't your fault, it's the cost of growing up in a system designed to isolate you. Your exhaustion isn't weakness, it's what happens when you're forced to perform your entire life for an audience you never asked for. You were born into a world on fire, and instead of putting it out, they handed you a phone and told you to figure it out. So yeah, you're struggling, but you're still here. Still trying, still fighting. And that's more than most generations can say. If you're Gen Z, comment "still here" below. Let's build something better together.